Blanche's daughter. Our brother, one of our brothers is here. Mark's here too.
Next to my sister.
Yep, Baltimore, Washington. I think the last time I saw you was in English. Get your vocabulary or something. To the boys. Did you ask Mark?
We're going to begin our service. We're going to ask people to make sure their cell phones are turned off, please.
Hebrew,
Not all.
not English.
Yes, not the whole thing, just the first one.
And I'll do Psalm 121.
Okay. You
Shir
start.
hamahalot, Eisahei nail hakarim, Mehayin Yahavo Ezrim, Ezrimahim Adonai, Os Hashamayim Vaharetz, Al Yiten Lamohot Raglecha, Al Yanom Shomerecha, Yenai lo yanum velo yishan, Shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomerecha, Adonai tzilcha, Aliyat yeminecha, Yomam Hashemesh lo yakekam, Ve'yareach balayla, Adonai shmorecha mikol ra, Yishmoret nafshecha, Adonai shmoret tzedcha uvahecha, Meyata ve'ad olam.
We gather together today as the dear family and friends of Betty Rubins. As we mourn her loss, we also celebrate the full, rich life she led. Death has taken our beloved Betty. Friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For her love that united us in life and which death cannot sever. For her companionship which we shared along life's path and which still continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and her mind which brought us joy and happiness and now become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, God, we give you our praise. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Ananai Natan, Ananai Lakach, Yehi Shem Ananai Mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai Natan, God you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all was good and enduring in her life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. A poem entitled My Hereafter. Do not come when I am dead to sit beside a low green mound or bring the first daffodils, because I love them so. For I shall not be there, you cannot find me there. I will look up at you from the eyes of little children. I will bend to meet you in the swaying boughs of bud-thrilled trees and caress you with the passionate sweep of storm-filled winds. I will give you strength in your upward tread of everlasting hills. I will cool your tired body in the flow of the river. I will warm your work-glorified hands through the glow of the winter fire. I will soothe you into forgetfulness to the drop, drop of the rain on the roof. I will speak to you out of the rhymes of the masters, and I will dance with you in the lilt of the violin and make your heart leap with the bursting cadence of the organ. I will flood your soul with the flaming radiance of the sunrise and bring you peace, the tender rose and gold of the after sunset. All these have made me happy. They are part of me, and I shall become a part of them. Proverbs 31. Eshet chayo mi yimsa, v'rachok mikni mikra. A woman of valor who can find. She is more precious than fine pearls. Her family trusts in her, and so they lack nothing. She does them good, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. A poem entitled Bread and Music. Music I heard with you was more than music, and bread I broke with you is more than bread. Now that I am without you, all is desolate. All that was once so beautiful is dead. Your hands once touched this table and this silver. I have seen your fingers hold this glass. These things do not remember you, beloved, and yet your touch upon them will not pass. For it was in my heart you moved among them, and blessed them with your hands and with your eyes. And in my heart they will remember always. They knew you once, O beautiful and wise. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bina desha yar bitzeni, omei menachot yanachaleni. Please join me now in the familiar words of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'd now like to invite Betty's sons, Ira and Jan, to come and share some personal words about their mother.
This is what happens when you get old. First, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and celebrating Mom's life. I know she'd be happy to see so many friends and relatives together. In a few minutes, you'll hear more about Mom's love of music and books and more. But I'd like to share a few memories that I'll never forget about Mom. Growing up, Mom had a lot of activities planned for me, like Sunday school, Sabbath school, Hebrew school, bar mitzvah sessions, and confirmation classes. But those of you who know me know that I managed to sneak in a few good years of some team sports like football and basketball and track. And Mom was always there as my biggest supporter and fan. She attended all the games regardless of the weather, especially since Dad couldn't be to all of the games because he was officiating a lot on his games on Friday and Saturday nights. But Mom was always there cheering me on. And Mom never missed a hair appointment in 75 years. So I really don't know her true color of her hair. But I do know I turned it gray a lot sooner than it should because of all the accidents and injuries that I personally went through. And so I'd like to give you a few examples, and that started at a very early age. About 5, we had a little step stool up to the bathroom sink and watched my dad shave, and I tried to imitate him and stepped up, slipped down, smashed the chin, a couple stitches there, beginning of the gray hairs. Around 6 years old, riding on the handlebars of a bike ridden by my dad around the block, and I accidentally got my foot caught in the spokes, sliced the foot up, more stitches and more gray hairs. Playing jungle gym tag in elementary school at Coventry Elementary School, climbing up to the top of the jungle gym and wanting not to be tagged, you slide down the center poles. And this is when there weren't any wood chips on the ground. It was solid concrete, looking away, and so I wouldn't get tagged, missing the pole and falling about 8 feet down on the concrete, knocking myself out, calling Mom, concussion, and more gray hairs. In junior high school, during a gym class, leaning to catch a football that was thrown a little wide and missing it, putting my arm down on the ground to brace my fall and sliding through a broken pop bottle. Mrs. Rubins, your son needs to go to the emergency. Lots of stitches, more gray hair. Breaking bones in both of my hands in consecutive years at Heights High playing football. Surgeries on both hands, a lot of gray hair. You see, Mom would never watch the game. She only watched me. When I showed a sign of ouch during a game and I came back to the bench and sat down, I turned around. And those of you who remember the old Heights High School field, you had a fence around it and the players' bench was right there. And my brother Brett, little brother Brett, was leaning over and said, "Mom wants to know what's wrong." And, of course, there were surgeries and more gray hair. But she was always watching me, and I was always making her grayer and grayer. When I was a young boy, I don't know, about 10, Dad bought a boat and called it the Betty B. It was about an 18-footer. He'd take it out on Lake Erie and 16 foot, smaller yet. It was big to me. And I think he named it after Mom, so he wouldn't get as much trouble buying a boat. But Mom would never go out on a small boat. Was very scared. If it wasn't an ocean liner, she wouldn't step foot on it. But one night after a Cub Scout meeting, and it was a beautiful Wednesday night, and Lake Erie was flat as glass. And somehow we convinced Mom to go out on the Betty B. It would be her first voyage. We had to get the boat out of the lot it was in, take it down to Gordon Park, put it in the water, and we were going to go to Lakeside Yacht Club to meet a friend. I think it was Julius Goldfarb for dinner. And as we were going and heading towards the break wall, the steering column pin fell out, which means we couldn't control the boat. We were going right for the break wall, all the rocks. And we had two choices: cut the motor and drift in and crash, or find the pin quickly and avert a nice disaster. Fortunately, we found the pin, put it in, and avoided the hitting the rocks by about 20 yards. Proceeded to go to Lakeside Yacht Club, and my dad wasn't a great boatsman. So as we came in to dock the boat, we came in a little too straight instead of on an angle, and I was up on the bow. I put my hand out to stop the boat from hitting the dock, and so I crushed my hand between the boat and the dock. I jumped onto the dock, crying in pain. Dad, seeing what happened, ran out to the bow of the boat, jumped to get me on the dock. The boat went out. He went in the water, and Mom started floating out in Lake Erie.
When was the last time she was on the boat?
First and last. Well, that was a broken wrist, a lot more gray hair, and probably not a great night for my dad once he got home from the hospital. As I said, well, Mom was also a human seatbelt back in the day. When she was late for her hair appointments, you better get out of the way because she owned the roads. And on Saturday mornings in the 60s, she would have to drop me off at Sabbath school early so she can get to her hair appointment by, I think, 9 or 10 o'clock. And I remember many a times that the arm saved me from smashing my head against the dashboard. And Mom continued her expertise in driving right up to the age of 87 when she was late for Sabbath services and decided to pass someone over the curb and into a telephone pole. Thank you, Eric, for helping out. But she did have her seatbelt on at that time. So Mom, thank you for always watching over me, and I'm sorry I caused you to color your hair at such an early age. And I know that you're finally with Brett and Dad, and you'll continue watching over me as you have for my entire life.
Thank you.
The other part of that boat trip was that, in addition to everything that Jan described, in the middle of that, which you may have forgotten, the motor went dead and it wouldn't restart, and we spent about a half an hour trying to get it restarted while we were floating out in Lake Erie. And that was the whole thing. He had actually bought the boat secretly, took it over to his parents' house, Grandma Nellie and Grandpa Harry's house, to get it fixed up before and get it painted with the Betty B on it before he showed it to her that he had spent the money on that. But, so, yeah, well, and I would say that she didn't start coloring her hair till after Jan came, so still, I'm not really sure what that means. Good morning, everyone. I also want to thank you all for coming, help celebrate Betty's life. I do want to acknowledge that we have, through the magic of the internet, family viewing online from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon, California, Arizona, and Florida as well. Hello. Actually, I've struggled to put into words what to say about my mom. As the eldest son, I had a complicated, sometimes difficult relationship with her. In the end, though, I loved her dearly and she loved me, and we worked through a lot of things together, setting the stage for my brothers to come so they would have it easier. She took mothering very seriously. She made sure that my brothers and I had what we needed growing up. One of the things she told, and I know we talked about this with Rabbi earlier, but when she and my dad were first married and money was tight, she would get the cash of whatever was for the week, and she had envelopes for each of the things that needed to be paid. So she put the money in this for that and this for that. Phone bill here, water bill here, butcher here, whatever it was, so that she would make sure she had everything. I know one of the things that she wanted for all of us, the three boys, was to experience the same appreciation of music that she had and that she lived. And I know that she succeeded in that, in all different ways that we did that, although being the first and having her as my in-house piano teacher may not have been the best route to go. We got through it, and when they said, well, you got to pick an instrument that you want to learn. You got to pick something. I said, well, how about singing? So that was it, and I did take singing lessons, sang in the choir at chorus, men's chorus at Heights, and took singing lessons at Cleveland Institute, which was her second favorite place to be. We all know that Betty was what we like to call strong-willed. The way I tend to describe it is that my mom didn't want things to be done Betty's way. She just wanted them to be done the right way. It just happened to be Betty's way. But I would say that one of the most important things that I learned from my mom, albeit in an indirect way, was that security in life eventually is found within oneself. Accepting with grace the things we cannot change and finding the courage to change the things we can. I miss her, and glad that she was my mom in the end. So I love you, Mom, and thank you for everything.
Thank you for your beautiful, heartfelt words. I'm going to try not to be repetitious. Do my best. The Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidic Rebbe, once observed there are three ways we mourn. The first is with tears, the second is with silence, and the third is with song. We mourn someone truly beloved, we experience all three. Tears at first, then silence as our grief settles more deeply. And finally, song as we're able to celebrate the memories we hold deep in our hearts. So today is a time for tears as we say our final goodbyes to Betty. We each remember Betty in our own way. Betty was a beloved mother to Ira and Kathy, Jan and Peggy and Brett. She was a loving grandmother to Jennifer and Brian, Max and Caitlin, Dana, Hallie, and Kendall, an adoring great-grandmother to Emily, David, Allison, Sylvia, Eli, Anna, and Lucas. Throughout her life, Betty was a devoted wife to Dr. Alex Rubins and a caring sister and sister-in-law to Harvey and Eunice, Blanche and Albert, and a dear aunt to Lauren, Eric, Evan, Ralph, Mark, Judy, and Debbie. Betty was born here in Cleveland on November 18, 1926, to Sarah and David Buller. Betty was a middle child. As a young girl, Betty was quite a tomboy. She always enjoyed playing baseball and stickball with the boys on her block. Betty went to Patrick Henry Junior High and graduated from Glenville High School. Her family lived above Frank's Hebrew bookstore at 105th and Superior, and her father was a canner. Betty met her beloved Alex in high school. He was a star football player and a year ahead of her. Alex graduated in 1944 and went off to the very end of World War II. Betty graduated in 1945. Alex had to hitchhike back to Cleveland from San Antonio the next year for them to get married. Betty and Alex were married on May 18, 1946. It was Lag BaOmer, a very traditional day to get married on the Jewish calendar. Betty worked as a bookkeeper until Ira was born in 1947, and then Jan in 52 and Brett in 55. Betty was a stay-at-home mom when the boys were young, and then went back to work part-time doing bookkeeping jobs in doctors' offices. She also worked at Green Road Animal Hospital and brought home a standard poodle named Calhoun. Betty had some go-to favorite foods to make for her family. Spaghetti with mushrooms that Jan always had to push to the side. Friday night was always brisket, and weekends were scrambled eggs with salami. And you can't forget the tongue. Betty loved music. As we heard, she made all the boys take piano lessons, but Brett was the only one who really picked it up. Betty sang professionally in the choirs at Park Synagogue, Temple Emmanuel, and Grace Lutheran Church. When she retired from the church, they threw her a beautiful party and gave her a lovely card. Betty was so touched, and she made lasting friends there. Betty was such an active member of Park Synagogue. Jennifer once asked her, "Grandma, what do you do when you have to sing those religious songs in the church choir?" Betty said, "Oh, I just mumble those parts." Betty was also in the Cleveland Orchestra Chorus under George Zell and Robert Shaw, and she took 2 trips with the orchestra to Puerto Rico for the Pablo Casals Festival. Betty also loved to read. She took a book with her wherever she went, usually a mystery. Betty shared with Jennifer that as a child, she loved to curl up on their window seat and read for a whole afternoon. Betty and Alex were very involved in the Park Synagogue Couples Club, and they performed in many of the plays that they put on, such as Have Shotkin Will Travel. Jan remembers performing with his parents when he was just around 7 years old. He wore a plain dealer delivery bag and ran down the aisle saying, "Read all about it." Alex taught Betty to play bridge, and they played with friends every weekend. Betty also bowled in a synagogue league. She was a life member of Hadassah and passed it down by giving her daughter-in-law Kathy and granddaughter Jennifer gift memberships. Betty and Alex were avid sports fans. They loved to watch baseball, football, and basketball. They even bought a share in the Cavs when the franchise began in 1970. Betty and Alex enjoyed vacationing in Michigan, and later when they retired, they took cruises and they traveled to Amsterdam, Japan, Italy, and Israel. When the boys were young, every Thanksgiving and Passover was spent traveling back and forth between Cleveland and Silver Spring, Maryland, to spend the holidays with Betty's sister Blanche's family. They also spent a lot of time in Cleveland with her brother Harvey's family. One of Betty's greatest legacies to her family is the Thanksgiving hike. It began when Ira was about 3 or 4 years old, before Jan was born. Betty was trying to get Thanksgiving dinner ready, and she said to Alex, "Take him out so I can make the turkey." So Alex took Ira, and they stopped at a corner store and bought a package of hot dogs and baked beans. They went to an open field on Euclid Heights Boulevard and cooked the hot dogs. Every year the tradition continued. All the family that was in for the holiday would go on the Thanksgiving hike and eat hot dogs. It evolved a bit over the years, moving to a metro park, playing Frisbee, sometimes including breakfast instead. But whether here in Cleveland or in Silver Spring, the family always gathers on the morning of Thanksgiving Day for the Thanksgiving hike. But Betty always stayed at home. The Rubins family could make entire photo albums of pictures just from their Thanksgiving hikes. Betty kept track of everyone in her life in her little address book. If someone moved, she would white out their old address and enter the new one. She had everyone's birthdays in there. If anyone in the family needed an address, they just asked Betty. It was difficult for Betty when Brett and Alex died. But as we heard, she was a strong and independent woman. She knew how to manage her money, and Betty didn't want to be a burden on Ira or Jan. So she didn't always let on how she was doing. So today may be a time for tears. We are saddened by the loss of Betty, but we learn much from her, especially how to care for one another. Let these tears serve to strengthen and uphold you as a family. There's a story about a rabbi who once passed an old woman planting trees. "Old woman," he called, "why are you planting those trees? You'll never live to see them blossom." But the woman replied, "My ancestors planted trees, not for themselves but for us, that we might enjoy their shade and their fruit. I too do the same for all those who will come after me." Betty planted an orchard for each one of us, an orchard filled with devotion and with love, and these will always be here for us. We must be grateful that we're able to share in Betty's life. Tomorrow there'll be fewer tears, more silence. As the Baal Shem Tov noted, it will be a time for pondering, a time for contemplation. Betty will become a greater part of our characters and our beings as we integrate the memories and the values she taught us into our own selves. But finally, there'll come a time for song. A time will come when we can celebrate Betty. We recall all that we learned from her and how she touched each of our lives. May she rest in peace. Zecher Sidacha Livracha. May the memory of Betty Rubins be a blessing. Amen. Let us pause for a moment of silence as we each remember Betty in our own hearts. Please rise, if you're able, for El Malay Rachamim.
Hey, Malay Rachamim, Shochein B'Meromim, Hametzei Menochanechon Hav, Tachat Kanefei Ashchina, B'Machalot Kedoshim Udvarim, Kezogar Garaki Yamazgerim, Et Nishmat, Батя вет Давид весара, шегалеха леголама, бегана данетехей менухата, ана бавалгара хамим, астирага бесатер канав халеголамим, ветицурор бицурора хаим этнишмата, Adonai unachalatha, v'tanuag b'shalom al mishkavam, v'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Betty Rubins, known in our tradition as Batya Bat David Vasara, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated. This concludes our service here. We'll proceed from here to Beit Olam Cemetery for burial. And following that, the Rubins family receiving visitors at Stone Gardens, 27090 Cedar Road in Beechwood, following services today until 2 p.m. Thank you.